All right. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Curator Conversations, where we're talking about one of the most important things in your business: how to get more repeat and referral business, and how to create a sustainable model in order to do that. I'm joined today by Miss Rachel Mooney, who is the owner broker of the Mooney Group down in North Atlanta, greater Metro Atlanta market. And she has mastered a beautiful rewards program to really love on her VIPs in order to get more referral business from that. So with that being said, I want to make sure everybody can hear us and see us. So give a thumbs up in the chat. But Rachel, why don't you introduce yourself to the community? For those who don't know you and your story, talk a little bit about that and to kick things off.
Perfect. Thanks, Craig. So my name is Rachel Mooney. I've been selling real estate since 1999. I have a team of 8 full-time agents and 6 operations. So like Craig said, we sell in the North Metro Atlanta area. We are primarily residential agents. We don't deal in the commercial space, so residential agents only. So
yeah, well, that's great, and shout out to you if you have any referrals for Rachel. Certainly think of her. So today we're talking about the VIP program that you have built over the years and has created kind of like a foundational core piece of your business. So I want to get to the root of like, how did this even start? Like, what problem in your business were you looking to solve, or how did this come about in general?
Well, that's a great question. So originally, when I first got into the business, I was very transactional. So I dealt with people just would call expireds for sale by owners. And I just was interested in the transaction. I wasn't interested in the follow-up after a transaction. Right. And so it was probably about 10 years into the industry that I started to realize that I'm not getting any referral business, number one, because I wasn't communicating with anybody in the past. I was just, again, very transactional. And so I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't know exactly what to do or how to have conversations with people I have not had in the past. So one very telling experience that I had is my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law. When my husband and I got married, I helped them sell their house as an agent because I was the sister-in-law. So I helped them sell their house, but I never kept up with them after that. Even though they knew I was a realtor, I never was in their face asking for the business. I wasn't doing anything to keep up. I wasn't giving anything of value, educating them, anything. And I lost 2 deals from them, another buy and another sell in the future. And of course, my feelings get hurt because they were my family. And I thought my family should know I'm in real estate and they should support me that I'm in real estate. And they just didn't. And so it was multiple things that I was experiencing that way from friends, family members, people that I thought for sure knew I was in the business and that would give me the business was not giving me the business. So I knew I had to do something different.
Yeah, I wonder too, because first off, how many people, if you're on this call right now, how many people have had a scenario like that Rachel just mentioned? A family member, a friend, somebody you know intimately, and then they go and transact with another agent, because A, maybe you failed to stay in touch, and B, failed to stay relevant. And Kathy Toomey's chiming in. Like that, I don't think that's unique, right? I think we all experience that from time to time in this industry. And so that was kind of a turning point you mentioned. So from that experience, you knew you needed to do something. Tell me, like, what was the process for you to envision this VIP program?
So, of course, and probably everybody has experienced this. If you have experienced that type of loss, right, where you're not getting the business from the people that you assume, or you're not keeping up with any past clients and staying in front of them, is how do I move forward into building relationships with them? Like, what is that pivotal moment to all of a sudden I'm going to pick up the phone and call you and see how you're doing, but I haven't talked to you in 6 years. Right.
Yeah.
And so you get to that fear again and going, what am I going to do? Or what am I going to say? And so that's where I came across the book, Perk Your Sphere. And
Mhm.
that was by Liz Johnson. And so that was the very first book I read. And it's a very quick read. I read it on my phone. I think it probably took like an hour of time to read that. And
Yeah.
that process was just written out for me. And in my mind, I go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I have to have is somebody just put this process out that all I do is put it into place and it makes total sense. It was something that was easy to follow. So I read that book, we put it into play. And then within that year, we read the other two books, Be Our Guest, which was this one, the Disney book, right, about the great customer service experience. And
Mhm.
then you guys turned me on to this one, which was absolutely one of my favorite books, which is Never Lose a Customer Again by Joey Coleman. So
I
I love
actually have
that.
that right here too. I love that book. Yeah.
Yeah. So that reading those two together mixed with the Perk Your Sphere just started this brainstorming dialogue of what it is that we can do moving forward. So, but the original thought came from the Perk Your Sphere book. And that,
Yeah. I and I've read that, and it's such an easy read. Who on this call, raise your hand if you've read that book, Perk Your Sphere. I know Eddie, I just dropped that in the chat just so you have that. But I'd love to see like who's read that book, because it's yeah, Stuart, pick it up. It's like $5 and you'll finish it in less than a day. But that was the inspiration for Rachel to say, like, this is the thing that's missing. This is how I can create a formula to stay in touch and love on the people that I've either done business with or I know that should be referring me often. So
yeah.
you've read this book, right?
Mhm.
And you're like, this is perfect. This is like the playbook. Um, and then how'd you get started? I know you're supported by an operations team. So like, what was the starting point? Did you map it all out? Did you just like start emailing people and saying, hey, this is what we're doing? Or
Yeah. Yes and no, right? Like being on the sales side, like, do we really ever fully think about anything? 100%, probably not. Like we just jump in and do it. I created a letter because that's what the book said. There
Mhm,
was a letter there that was introducing the program,
mhm,
and I backtracked all of my clients. So anybody that I had sold with in the last year, I automatically sent them that letter,
mhm.
letting them know, hey, we have a VIP program. More to follow. And then I created a video. In that video, we sent out to them via email. On that video, they could actually find out more information and they could go ahead and sign up to be part of that process. So that was my initial sending it out to all of my past clients. Now that has since changed, but that's how we initially did that to introduce the program.
Yeah. And so what was that group? A couple hundred people maybe, or 100 or so,
It
or
was about 50, maybe. It
okay,
was under 100 people.
got it.
It was under 100.
Yeah. And so in that early iteration, because I know you've iterated this over the years, talk about what that was, and then we'll talk about how that's transcended. But what were you first doing back in the day?
So our partners program is called TMG Partners, and we had TMG Partners and TMG Platinum Partners, meaning
Mhm.
that was like a second tier of the program. And it
Yeah.
was all based on referrals and how many referrals they gave us. So if they closed a transaction with us or had given us one referral, they were considered a TMG partner.
Mhm.
If they gave us another referral within the 6 months, they moved up to the platinum status. At the time, we were doing the Starbucks gift cards.
Yeah.
We went through their corporate side of Starbucks, had our logo put on the cards. They were all in my Starbucks app, so I could fill those as needed. And so the way the program was designed, that if they gave you two referrals in a 6 month period of time, you would just reload their Starbucks card.
Got it.
So the first tier of the program, they were basically just invited to events, but then the second portion of the program, they would actually be getting their Starbucks card that was being refilled on a regular basis.
Yeah. And
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 that
what's
became a nightmare, right? Like that was a
you
operations nightmare to just take
yeah,
care of. That stuff was a
talk
lot.
talk a little bit about that. So how many people opted out of the gate? How many people opted in, like responded and said, let me like, I'd love to do this. Like, did you get a flurry of referrals, or was it a lot of people just over time saying thank you, and eventually people started to think of you more often?
So they opted in right away. Like I would say at least 50 to 60% opted in right away. And I was surprised, right? Because I thought, oh, I'm going to send this letter out. I'm going to send the video out, and it's going to be crickets. And it was not that way. It was a very quick response. Hey, we want to be part of the program. That's when we also put them into our private Facebook page that was just for our partners. And so over time, now that's where the referrals have come into play. But initially it was a very quick instant response, like, I want to be part of the program.
Yeah.
And so we were delighted. So then when you get that being part of the program, there's maintenance to that, right? There's a spreadsheet on the operations side that talks, who gave what referral, when did they give it? Did we give a Starbucks card? Have we refilled the Starbucks card? There was a lot of logistics that went into play with that we have obviously pivoted from, because it's just not scalable.
Yeah. So as this has grown and it has become less scalable, for somebody that maybe is newer, and doesn't have maybe a ton of past clients, like maybe they don't have 50 past clients, but they want to start, is that something you would recommend, or do you think that it won't become scalable long term? Because I think that's one of the big things too, is you've hit it, you've mentioned it a few times, like, is it scalable? How does it scale? So
Right.
is that something, do you recommend the Starbucks angle at all, or is that something that that you would veer away from?
So obviously that's a conversation. It's got to be scalable, right? Has been one huge learning lesson for us, is what you can do for 20. Can you do that for 20? Can you do that for 500? Right. And so where do the logistics change in that? And so I would definitely recommend for somebody that does not have clients to initiate the partners program, their VIP program, and start that from day one. Right. But then as they're adding and evolving that process, making sure that they're doing the things that are scalable, because that does become a huge factor. I mean, we're experiencing that now with our Thanksgiving event. So
Yeah,
it's
you,
real.
you mentioned that. So, and we'll talk a little bit about that, because I think that's important to really hone in on. But let's get into some of those events, because I think what's transitioned is now you aren't focused on like the coffee, you get coffee for a year, which is great, because people, like, every time they swipe that, it's like in the back of their head, they're like, they think of you. So and people get coffee every day. But when that becomes not scalable, the things that are scalable are the things you can plan and map out. So talk a little bit about that iteration now, because I know you focus more on events and maybe giveaways and prizes and things like that. So talk a little bit more about what it is today and how you've pivoted.
Yeah. So today it's 4 events. It's one a quarter. And we have 2 events that stay the same exact every single year, which is our January ice skating event for the entire families. And then our last quarter of the year, which is our Thanksgiving event that we have, which obviously we may change that this year. But those are the 2 big events that stay the same consistently every year. We also do a big giveaway that happens at the 3rd quarter. So we call it our end of summer giveaway. And that's where we launch out. The first year we did it, we did 3 big prizes. The last 2 years we've done weekend getaways, and we get a really great response from that. But we've done many things. We've done date nights. Date nights seem to be phenomenal. But again, when you're looking at the logistics and how you can coordinate these things, it becomes very difficult to do. So when we were smaller, then obviously things like date nights were much easier to do. And that was, movie nights. We were coordinating the movie and the valet parking along with the dinner, so they wouldn't have to think about anything. They just literally came in and got their information, and they took off with their spouse or loved one and went and had a great time. So, so the events have evolved a little bit. We do plan our events in October for the following year. So everything is planned out. We have a budget that's created for those events. We know who our sponsors are going to be for the events, and all of that happens in October. So we are in the process of that right now for 2023.
Got it. So that's a big takeaway. So not only does have to be scalable, right? But you plan a year in advance for this, and I have to imagine that like budget goes into that. You kind of plan out budgeting, you plan out the events, you start talking to vendors. That kind of all happens now from October to December 31st, right? You want to have that locked in. Yeah. That's smart. And for a lot of people on this call, I would ask you, are you doing your budget planning? Are you doing your 2023 planning now? And if so, I would highly encourage you to start like integrate this conversation. If you have an operations team, like if you don't have this, start saying like, what can we do? And realistically, what's in our budget? And then what can we kind of commit to from an event scale? And Rachel, for instance, and this fluctuates, so I don't want everybody to grade what you're going to be doing in 2023 based off what Rachel says. But Rachel, what were you committing this year? Because I know you talked about this a little bit. What were you committing for this program from a budget standpoint?
For 2022?
Yeah.
For 2022, we had 15,000 set aside, and that was just for the events on our part. That didn't include our vendor side. Now, when I say all of the events, that is also all of everything that's incorporated under TMG partners. So that's our when we go to a buyer appointment or a listing appointment, we always bring a gift, right? And then when we have the event, we have gifts that we give at the event, or the referral gifts that are given. So that incorporates all of that together. It's not just physical events that I'm talking about in that.
Yeah. So, and so think about that. And she bases it off of, because you've mentioned this, off of kind of the size of the program and the scale of your business. So like you commit a certain amount, and is that a percentage or do you gauge it off of what you want to commit to the size of the program?
It's gauged off the size of the program. So right now we have 330 people in our program. Wow. So for instance, for our event that will happen at Thanksgiving, we know that event cost us roughly about $3,000 last year. So we have about 50 to 75 people more this year in the program. So we know that's going to cost us some additional money. So we always base it off the size. Yeah.
That's crazy growth for a program like that, by the way. And for everybody there, like 300 plus people, imagine if you had 300 plus people actively getting communicated with, thinking about you because you're staying in touch about fun events and giveaways and things that are like exciting and enticing. And obviously Rachel is going to talk about some things she does to add value too, but like that's 300 people constantly thinking about you. So it's got to be scalable. Talk a little bit about this event too, because I think this is kind of a bummer, but it's something to be realistic about. You shared with me during our prep session, because you do an annual pie giveaway. And this year, talk about what happened, because I think it's something for everybody to consider if you're going to put this into your part of your business.
Yeah. So our clients look forward to this, right? We've done this for several years. And of course, it started with just myself and 5 pies at the very beginning. And I was dropping those off and hand delivering them. Well, when we started this, or I started it, I was using a local bakery called Alpine Bakery, and they make beautiful pies. They come in a beautiful box. They're a nice pie. And this year, when we called them to go ahead and tell them approximately how many pies we were going to need. And we were thinking we're probably going to need about 200 to 250 based off of last year's numbers and the response we get every year. Yeah. Our clients love it. Yeah. And the bakery called us back yesterday and they said, there's no way we can even commit to doing this many pies because we don't have the bandwidth. They're short staffed. And so they can't even commit to 100 pies this year. So we're having to pivot now, figuring out what exactly are we going to do. And I think that was a big realization for me is, oh my gosh, because every year it's tough. I mean, we got to figure out how to refrigerate these things. We have to get them from the bakery into the locations. And it's a lot on the operations staff. And so every year it just grows and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it's almost a blessing in disguise that it's like, hey, they're not going to be able to fulfill this. And it's not anything that we ever thought about. But now going back to, okay, what is scalable? Because now we're at the size and we're only going to continue to grow. What do we do moving forward that can be scalable, that we can actually manage and take care of and deliver, and not have an event like this that's falling apart at what I call the last minutes. I mean, we were starting to promote it. Promotion started yesterday, which is kind of funny because we were stamping those invitations as we got the phone call.
Yeah. And so that's a big eye opener and for you, but also for anybody on the call, like thinking about that. Maybe you already do that with your clients too, but in 5 years, is the same local bakery, is the same thing going to be scalable for that business, that vendor that you're working with? And in this case for you, it's not. So we're learning that, the coffee incentives that, quickly became not scalable. The this pumpkin pie with the local bakery giveaway, like that has over time become not scalable. So the common theme here that I want everybody to take away is like, it's got to be scalable. It's got to be something that you can control, whether it's an event, a giveaway. It has to be within your control, right? It's great to do some and support some of those local vendors, obviously, but in this case, it's become not scalable. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. It's obviously, a kind of a bummer on your end, and I know you were bummed out about it, but this allows you now to think bigger for next year about what you can do and how you might, maybe it's an event or maybe it's something different. But so talk more about the I guess the events themselves. Once you lock those in, right? You're doing 4 a month, or 4 a year. 4 a month would be not scalable. So talk about, you're going to plan these out. You're going to lock these in probably in the next month or two for next year. And then what happens? Because you said you started the promotion for this pumpkin pie giveaway. So there's got to be a promotional period too. Talk about that and how you guys approach that.
Yeah, so we promote no less than 6 weeks, up to 8 weeks. Each event is promoted. So it is promoted by email, phone call, and text. We do create a email that is sent out through Chime. So anybody that's using Chime or Follow Up Boss or any other kind of program, that template is created in that system, and we attach a Google sign up sheet to it. So it's created, and each one of our agents that are on the team, it's their responsibility to start sending that out. So they're taught to send it out weekly until that event. At the same time, they're calling and texting, as well as they have the ability to look at the Google form to see who has signed up. So if they know that, Joey Smith signs up every single year for this event and he hasn't, then that's that prompt to go ahead and reach out to Joey Smith to find out, why is he not signing up, or is there something going on with him that they're not aware of? It's another touch point. So anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks is our ramp up time for those events.
Yeah. And that's something that is, I think, so important because A, people need to know what you're doing. And B, this gives the agent an incredible opportunity to strengthen those relationships. So your operations team puts together a smart plan that it's not automated touch points. These are, or some of them can be automated, but they're really task reminders for the agent.
Yeah.
So the agent's like, I got to call and invite them to this event. That's something that they might not have done if we weren't creating that process for them.
That's right. They wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, we teach that a lot, is communicating with your sphere of influence and your past clients. That is where the bulk of the business comes from. And so we're essentially just teeing it up for them, and all they have to do is follow the process. That gives them the language to talk about the all the way down to the event. I mean, they have dialogue, right, the entire time with their people to attend. So
and I know that in real estate we like to say, I have good relationships with my past clients and my sphere, but in reality, are we constantly communicating with those people? And this is just, not that this should be the end of those conversations, but it's a really great start of the conversation, that the fact that they're getting those invites, for at least, those 4 touch points throughout the year. And then the other things, the real estate conversations, the, hey,
Yeah.
how's your family doing? Those things will come from those kind of invitations. So I
Right.
love that.
Yeah.
So those, and that's how you kind of have built this, because you guys are aggressive with the invitations. You guys are
Mhm.
promoting it constantly. And then talk about some other things that you do along the way, because those things are important too. I think you said gifts for referrals, you bring gifts to appointments. Talk a little bit about those too, and let people know what you do outside of the events and promoting those events.
Yeah, so that stuff came from the Be Your Guest, the book, right? And
Yeah.
in this particular book from Joey.
Mhm.
So that got our team conversating about what could we do to make it a better customer service experience. We all know as realtors, we kind of get that name that we're the the car salesman, right? Or we're very pushy to make people to put in decisions. And so we kind of came together as a team to say, okay, what is it that we could put into place that would be consistent and scalable, and that anybody could do, that just comes on the team. So from that conversation, that came from the gift bags. So anytime we have a buyer consult or a listing appointment, we always bring a gift. And that's just something little, the gifts don't have to be anything major. We have candles that are created that we made, that we bring the candle. And so we kind of have this saying that, you don't show up at anybody's house empty handed, right?
Yeah.
Always bring them something. And so that's where that concept came from.
I
So
love that.
we have that. Obviously, we have the Starbucks. We do use the Starbucks gift cards. So we have the Starbucks gift cards that are given back to, it comes from the operations side, contract to close, with a letter that says, relax on us. We've got things handled from here, and it's a quick Starbucks card. So we inserted that. We now have a 5-star customer service experience. So we talk about the 5-star customer service and getting the 5-star review at the closing. So we started doing all of that. Now we also do referral gifts. So anybody that gives us a referral, they get a gift. And those gifts are they're not tiered, but they don't get the same gift every single time. So it might be a coffee mug with our logo on it. It might be our coffee. We have a coffee as well that's got our logo on it. It could be a Richardson trucker hat, for one of the guys. It could be a Mooney Group keychain. It could be a Mooney Group koozie. It could be a Mooney Group t-shirt. We have all kinds of different things that we pass on based off the number of referrals that they give us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly kind of providing them like, meaningful swag, like things like people, I don't know, coffee mugs, I think are, yeah, you might have a lot, but when you pull that coffee mug out, like I have tea every night, and I always I got some from weddings, I got some from places I've been, like you kind of have a memory from that experience. And when it's from the Mooney Group, you're having your morning coffee, it's just a little thing where they think of. And I love that you brand the coffee. Where did you work with a local coffee shop or something for that?
Yeah, it's just a local coffee shop. So it's got our logo on the bag.
Nice.
And we're about out of them. We need to order more, but they're great. I mean, that just little things like that you can do. I think I've talked about this before. You can find things on discount all over the place, online or local places. Especially with the local coffee shops, they'll do discounts with you to buy in bulk.
Yeah.
So we do those types of things.
That's smart. And then you were talking about the contract to close. So your transaction coordinator handles actually a big portion of this too, from that
Yes.
experience side, right?
Yeah.
Talk about her role a little bit, or her role, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And talk about what she does to kind of make this process work in terms of getting people, your clients, to stay happy through the process. And then afterwards, how does she facilitate getting them into the TMG program?
Yeah, so she obviously it's everything is on a checklist for her to kind of keep her in the process. But one thing we realize is we can't rely on the agents. This is a prime example. We can't rely on the agents to change things in our system, right? To change a client from a appointment to a pending to a close, and then add tags for them. And so we started to realize that, okay, if we rely on the agents, it's probably not going to be active data or done in a timely manner. So let's bring that back on the operation side. And so Christy is our contract to close, and she's got it on her checklist. So from the moment that the contract goes to closing, she's in Chime changing all the data. She's changing the address. She's changing them from under contract to closed. She's adding the TMG partners tag to it. She's doing everything that she can on her side so that when we go to creating these events, we know exactly how many people we have. The agents are taught to have that conversation with the client at closing as well. That, hey, you are now part of this TMG Partners program. That's like family. That means you're not getting rid of us, right? You're going to still get emails from us on a regular basis. So you're going to also be invited to a Facebook group that's a closed Facebook group. So make sure you accept that invitation. So we use that time at the closing table to kind of tee it up of what's going to be happening next. So it doesn't catch them off guard.
Yeah. So, and you have that operations team in place, and not to say that you can't have this program without having like an operations manager or an in-house like contract to close client care specialist, but it's a lot easier when you do. And that's what Rachel has kind of systematized, right? If you're planning on doing this yourself, you just have to be hyper diligent, right? You have to be your own, if you're a solopreneur on this call, you have to be really dialed in operationally, and you have to be doing those things, tagging people, inviting them to the group, having those conversations, baking that into your entire process to really make that work. It's possible, but obviously as you scale and grow, you should have a team managing that. You mentioned that you have a Facebook group, so I don't want to skate over that because that's kind of like part of this process where you can kind of incubate these people too, right? The people that you work with. So talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so it's a private group. They obviously have to be friends of myself in order to be invited to attend that group, because the way the private group is set up, it won't just invite non-friends.
Yeah.
So that in that group, that's where we actually communicate our events. So they get first acknowledgement that these events are coming up, right? So it's a kind of an announcement. Hey, pay attention to your email box. We're going to be sending out an email in the next 5 days on our end of summer giveaway or our pie event in November. So we give them that information up front. One thing that we're incorporating now is it's a place where they can also get vendor information. So if they're looking for a roofer, here's our contractors for a roofer. If you're looking for a painter, here's information on a painter. So we're incorporating, making it more of a spot where they can go and just get all the information. Of course, we don't want it to lose the contact from us because we're so used to our clients reaching out to us saying, hey, I need to get a new deck put on my house. Who do you recommend? But in case they can't get to one of us, then here you go. Here's another resource. It's in our Facebook group page as well.
So I love that.
And then we post pictures and stuff there too.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And it kind of becomes that one-stop shop where you can manage it. And again, having somebody like, Wendy on the call here, Wendy's our community manager. And that's a full-time role. And it's not, you can't have that in every business, but it's a place where you can really create that community feel. And one thing, and I know I mentioned this to you yesterday, Rachel, if anybody here has a Facebook group like Rachel has, or you're building this out, a cool way to build engagement outside of the events and the giveaways and maybe the vendor updates that you're providing, the vendor recommendations, is if you have a team, I don't care if it's your admin, if it's a TC or the agents, encourage them to share their local experiences in that group. Meaning, Rachel Mooney's obviously the face of the brand, but having her agents or her operations team say, hey guys, I just went to this new local coffee shop that opened, and they have a loyalty program there that they give you a little card for, highly recommend it. That's a touch point that it's not necessarily like you're not providing a incentive for them, but you're sharing local like hidden deals throughout the community, which people love. People do look forward to those things. Or if a new gym opens, or if a new boutique opens, like your team's out in the world too. Like have them sharing those experiences. And I think that can almost keep that that momentum going throughout the year as that. So I know that I shared that with you too, Rachel, and
Yeah,
those are things
love
that I
that
think
idea.
any team can really incent or have their team kind of participate in. We do have a question, so I don't want to, because I want to make sure we get to some questions here too. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll make sure to get to as many as possible.
Yeah.
Mark's asking, do you have to host large events to be effective? Or can you create a per client experience and be just as equally effective with your top of mind goals? So I think he's saying like the big ice skating event or maybe the fall event or holiday event versus maybe some of the giveaways you're doing. I think that's what he's referring to. So maybe talk more about the difference in those.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer his question, it doesn't matter if it's one, an event for one person, or if it's for the entire group, right? We have to, and I had to kind of tell the operations team this, it doesn't matter how many people actually respond, it's actually how many people did you communicate with, because that's where that's the number we want to watch, right? Is if you're sending out 100 invitations for 6 weeks and you're touching 600 people for 6 weeks, but 3 people attend or 3 people respond, it's not about the 3 people, it's about the 600 that you communicated with, right? So we did small events and we actually, the years of COVID, we did gift baskets for the kids that went, as soon as they said everybody has to stay home, we were dropping off gift baskets. We did Father's Day gift baskets, Mother Day gift baskets. And in order for us to maintain it all, it was for the first 10 people that responded or the first 20 people that responded. And it still was effective because we were communicating with this wide net of people, but we were only having to do it for 10 or 15 people. So yes, so it's actually, I think it's just as effective to do an event for one person as it is for a big event for multiple people, as long as you're communicating it out to that big group of people. So I definitely think that keeps you top of mind, no matter what.
Yeah. So, and hopefully that answers your question, Mark, too. But what Rachel's doing is kind of a blend of both. She does have some of those bigger events, but then she does, like the date night. Not 300 people don't get a date night. It's people who respond and participate in a specific way. Those are the ones that win the date night. So it's a giveaway kind of event. And I think that in what you said is like, it creates people like look out for your emails. They look out for those notifications, and they really appreciate some of those. And I know you did some high end ones recently with like some weekend getaways at some high end resorts. So like, whether or not I want it, I'm like, damn, Rachel's like, I got to look out for her next email.
Exactly.
And it does, I think it makes people feel special that they're included in those.
That's right.
So just to keep this going, talk about, because you're contributing budget in this program, right? But then, a lot of times we have preferred lenders, we have, vendor partners. How do you get them involved at all to participate and contribute to these types of events?
Yeah, so obviously, we have a vendor sponsorship structure that we create each year. So right now, after we plan our events, we will plan the structure for our vendors. And it is a tiered structure. So they can contribute, $250 or $500 to an event, or they can contribute $1,000 to an event. But we do open that up to our preferred vendors to allow them to contribute some funds to that. Now, if they contribute to the funds of the event, they can attend the event. What they can't do is they can't bring their materials. So they can't set up a tent and have their materials there and do self-promotion. They can come and attend. They get to meet our clients on a personal basis and build relationships that way. So that has been very effective. It's twofold, right? It allows our vendors to meet our clients and become more personal with them, especially if it's a closing attorney or a lender who has probably worked with them, but they had one transaction, so they're building an additional relationship there. But then on the flip side, for our team, that holds our team accountable to making sure that we are giving the business to our vendors as well. So if it's a a home inspector, right? They're on the list of 3, and it's given to our clients that, hey, these are people that support our business. We support their business. They're very easy to work with. So we do create that. And also that is created in October to help offset some of that cost. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I like that you allow them to participate in a very specific way. Like, they're not allowed at an event to have like a tent with their banner up and stuff. It's
Right.
They can come and contribute by doing meet and greets on a one-to-one basis, but it's not like a sales event. Like, they can't come in and do those types of things there. So it's not it's not a solicitation, right? It's
Correct.
it's truly a kind of a participation. They come to meet and participate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Eddie, yes, this is being recorded, just so you know, if you have to jump off. But you were just about, I didn't want to steal your thought right there, because I think you were about to say something else.
So it kind of goes in hand with that, right? We're all budget conscious, and sometimes you don't want to start these things because you may not have the budget or the bandwidth to do this yet. So one thing that we've actually started this year is brainstorming on co-branding with other local places. So for instance, I go to a very local gym here. It's called Horsepower. It's just a little one-off. It's not like a big Atlanta Fitness or something like that, but we're starting to have conversations on, let's host a 5K together, or let's host a beer mile. And we're going to also do that co-branding with the local Cherry Street Brewery, right? And so what happens is you can start having these community events with other people. Your VIP people can attend and they get special treatment at that event, but you're also getting co-branding marketing. You're getting the use of their databases, the use of your database, and you're able to have a bigger function without having the overhead cost. So that's one thing that we're starting to really get into this year, is how can we build relationships with other businesses and continue to give the same value without having so much overhead on that.
I think that's huge. And to the 5K thing, like, there's a lot of 5Ks that have meaningful foundations that they support.
Yep.
And if you can be involved in those and a co-sponsor of those, that's huge branding, but it's also, it shows like the things you believe in, I think matters. So, and your vibe attracts your tribe. So the things that you care about will attract people who also care about those things.
That's right.
Which does lead to future relationships, which can lead to future business. So think about those things. And for those who don't know what a beer mile is,
I didn't know what it was until this morning. I'm like, what exactly is that? I didn't.
It's funny because I don't know if everybody knows. I don't even know it's how you would make the event, but it's basically you're running around a track, and every lap around a track is a quarter mile. And so every quarter mile you have to chug a beer and then continue running.
Yeah.
So I think it's hilarious to hear you say that. I can see that being a fun event, and I'd love to hear if that's something you kind of formalize. But I just want to get back to Mark's topic too. I guess his concern, Mark, hopefully you're still on, is he's focused on who doesn't attend, and if it's a bust, and having all that time and effort invested. But it makes sense about the amount of time to communicate. Listen, Mark, and I'll let you kind of chime in too. If you have an event that's wildly popular, like an ice skating night or a holiday party or a harvest festival kind of event, that's great. It's family friendly. It's got a lot of food, and it's got maybe some giveaways. It's a great idea, great event. And if you communicate it in advance, listen, it's not going to be a buzz. You're going to have people that are going to want, like, that's fun for people, whether they're your clients or past clients or Sphere or not. Like, that's stuff that people look to do on the weekends anyways. If you can be the resource of that, and the planner of that, and the host of that, man, it's forget about the 50 people that don't show up, the 100 people that do show up. That's going to be what it's all about. And so, Rachel, I think it won't be a bust, because you communicate it out in advance, 6 to 8 weeks in advance, and you have some pretty rocking events. Do you have any thoughts on that? Have you ever had an event that you would consider a bust in that format?
Yeah, we had one back this spring that I kind of felt was a bust. I mean, it was a
Okay.
great event. We had not done one before, and it was just a happy hour at a local restaurant here. And we did it during the middle of the week. We promoted it with our, the 6 to 8 weeks that we typically promote. And
Yeah.
we probably had 10 people show up. A lot of people were having issues because it was in the middle of the week. It was a school year. So
Hmm.
people were having, after school practices and hard time picking up their kids, or their husband was going to be working late. I mean, there was a lot of factors that came into play.
Got
And so
it.
I kind of felt like it was a bust. I was like, oh, maybe it wasn't such a good deal. But again, I was in my mind thinking, okay, only 10 people showed up. Well, it wasn't about the 10 people. I mean, yes, we got to build relationships with those 10 people,
Yeah.
but it was really about the 300 that saw us for 6 to 8 weeks in their email box and were getting text from us and phone calls from the team. And that's what it was really about, right? I mean, sure,
Yeah.
they missed a fun event, but and there'll always be events coming back up, but we continue that dialogue with them. And that's really what it's about. It's not about who actually attends it. It's
Yeah.
what happens prior and what happens after.
And so that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because that is something where it becomes a learning experience. Maybe you and your operations team go back and say, okay, did we, can we choose a different night of the week, or do
Right.
we think that this is, is this something that maybe isn't as attractive because it's a drinking event versus maybe
Right.
family friendly or something like
That's
that. So it
right.
allows you to go back and reevaluate. But yeah, I can see how that, you get that feeling of, man, I thought there would be like 40 or 50 people.
Right.
But
Yeah.
again, you've been touching 330 people, those TMG partners, for the past 6 weeks. So they know that you're planning events and they feel good that they're being invited. And I think that's the takeaway. So hopefully that makes sense for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying, yeah, potential reach versus actual clients. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so you're getting buy-in from some of your vendors. How do you approach that conversation? Like, for the first time when you approached a lender, how did that conversation go?
So, I mean, to me, it's a little stressful, right? Because you're like, hey, come invest in me, right?
Yeah.
And we've been investing in you for so long.
Yeah.
Our lender and our closing attorney are our two biggest supporters, and we support them, wholeheartedly. And we have been for ever since we started this program. And so I think now at this point, it's very easy. It's like, hey, do you want to continue to move forward with us? But like, we just brought in a moving company, and he's a one-man show. He's got, I think, a crew of 4 or 5 people. And when I first met with him, we met at a coffee shop. I had not met him before, but he came referred to me, and
Hmm.
one of our agents uses him on a regular basis. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. It was like, we want you to be part of us. I've heard that you give great customer service. We give great customer service, and that's a huge priority for us. And so
Hmm.
if you're going to come align yourself with us, we expect certain qualifications or certain way of doing business, right, with our
Yeah.
clients. And so in order for to do that, we have a vendor program that I'd love for you to participate in. And
Okay.
so we just slide that form over that's already created. You can choose any tier structure you want to. You can do all events, you can do one event.
Yeah.
If you're passionate about one event, do one. Any of it and all of it is great. We're not going to turn down anything.
Yeah.
So it's just a very easy conversation. I've had companies like, for instance, a staging company. We work with the staging company. So I continue to ask, hey, will you support us in this? We're supporting your business. Will you support us? And they don't see the value, and that's okay. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But the people that are true business owners that know that we can support them, and they can support us, and this is an easy way for them to support us.
Yeah.
But then they also get access to our clients too at the same time. So at
Yeah.
the first conversations, when I first started having it, it is a little odd and like intimidating, like
Yeah.
I'm asking you for money.
Yeah.
But then when you again, you change your mindset on that, and it's like, I'm a business, you're a business, right? And I want to do business with you, and I hope that you want to do business with me. And in order for us to make that happen, here's an easy way that we've got it out for you. You can choose one or all of the options.
Yeah.
or none.
Yeah.
And it's okay if it's none, but here, this is what we would like.
Yeah. And that's, so you're creating a partnership. It's not necessarily an ask for contributions, which can be a awkward or tough ask, but you're reaching out as a partnership. And
Yes.
to
Yeah.
be in our partnership, we have multiple tiers, or you don't have to, but it kind of takes you out of some of the partnership like
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah.
You never get to meet our clients really. So I would love to, because in our recap email, again, this is recorded, we'll send this out afterwards. Rachel, if you could actually send me that form, I'm sure people would love
Yeah.
to see it if you're willing to share it.
Yeah.
And I think, what I'm hearing you say is like, this VIP program creates a sense of community, right?
Mhm.
People feel like they're getting value from you. You're loving on them throughout the year, but you're doing it in a very scalable way that's pre-planned, that's budgeted out, that's involving other local vendors to participate. It's involving other companies now that you're kind of co-branding and co-marketing with. And it's more than just like giving a gift to somebody. It's
Mhm.
creating a whole like uh it's a program, right? It's a
Yeah.
structured
It is
program
experience.
in which you're constantly communicating with people and you're involving them with community events. And I think that's part of the VIP program here is like community. And that's, I think, a big thing that I'm hearing here. I
Yeah.
want to see if anybody else has questions here before we wrap up. Drop your question in. And I want you to talk about one more thing, because I think the VIP program, the Facebook group is great, but you're also dropping in some real estate content, right? So like people hear from you through this process. It's not like, hey, we forgot. It's just incentivizing. You do hit them up with real estate content from time to time, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I hit them up quite a bit with the content that Curaytor gives us, right? I love the content that you give us and creating the videos and all of that. They always get our Friday morning coffee, which they have been every single month. And that's obviously the real estate data, local data for our county, Forsyth and Gwinnett County.
Mhm.
So they continue to get that. If there's anything news flashing that's happening, interest rates are changing, or when COVID was going on, it was more sharing about this is really what's happening. This is,
Mhm.
more informational. We want to make sure that we're the educators of what our clients are hearing, and they're not just going to the news to get the whole overview of what's happening, but here's what's happening local. So we do push that out quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
We're
that's
talking to our people all the time. Like
yeah.
it's
And
all the time.
that's a key thing. I don't know if you have any stats off the top of your head, but like, how has this referral program grown your business? Like, are you getting a few referrals? Are you getting dozens of referrals a year? Is it a small part of your business, a big part of your business?
It's a pretty big piece. And I actually had Christy pull that number for me yesterday.
Yeah.
So this year for 2022, 89% of our business that we have closed has either come from Sphere or our partners program. So it's a
Wow.
huge number. And one
That's
thing,
crazy.
yeah, one thing we happened that, and I've not had this happen before, but one thing I had happen this year is I had somebody come in that was referred from somebody that was referred. So,
Oh man, that's awesome.
which you're getting two-tier, right? And
Yeah.
so when we sent the gift, we sent it to both people. And that person in the middle, I never knew. They were referred from my client who referred them, who then
That's
referred another person. And
that's amazing.
so,
I
yeah.
I was okay, so I was gonna think you were gonna say like, 40 to 50, maybe 60%. That's crazy.
No,
That's good for you.
it was way bigger than I thought it was. Like,
That's huge. And so that was a stat I just found out. So hopefully everybody took 89% of their annual business, which is crazy. That's awesome to hear. And so it's showing that this program is not just working, it's working incredibly well to incubate your business, which
mhm,
a lot of times when I do talk to people about their past client referral kind of structure, they don't have one. They say
yeah,
they get business from, like, that's how they built their business, but they don't really have that process. You've created this structure where you have incubated it, and it just goes to show, I mean, it's the bulk of your business is coming from that. So
yeah,
man, Rachel, I'm happy for you. I know that, coming from, that experience, over a decade ago to where your family went with somebody else, and to today where like everybody's thinking of you constantly. That's a huge, thing to be proud of. So now I'm sure there's a lot of questions from people who might want to pick your brain and connect about your process. Like, how can people reach you after today's session?
Email's the best, right? My email, rachel@rachelmooney.com. I do get on social media, but I don't get on social media until later in the evening because it will suck me in. I don't get anything done. So, but for quicker response, it's definitely email. I'll definitely get back to you. Yeah.
And I
welcome questions. Like, I love questions. So
awesome. Well, I just dropped that in the chat for everybody. And if you have any referrals, I'm sure
yes,
Rachel will take
referrals.
them.
Yes. Yes, that's one thing that we want to incorporate. We've kind of fallen apart on this, but this is, and everybody in the call can they should do this too, because agent referrals are so big too in our business. But putting our local agents that send us referrals, we're going to start putting them in the program, and at least they won't be able to attend the events because they're not here, but getting gifts and stuff from us.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's great to referrals now more than ever are becoming such a big thing with people relocating and moving farther away from just like moving from in town. They're moving, counties away. They're moving out of the city to an hour away versus, maybe it was just moving 15 minutes away before. So, awesome. Well, thanks. Listen, Rachel, thanks for participating and sharing your wisdom. I know this is a program you've been building and iterating on over the years. So I think it's good to unpack it, again here in today's world. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the call. I hope everybody has a great end of the week. If you're celebrating the long weekend, enjoy. And happy early birthday to Rachel. Rachel's birthday is this Saturday. So happy early birthday to you, and have a great weekend, Rachel.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. See you guys.